Why are we the only species that decides to cook our food? I'm not here to force my belief to you guys today, but I want to speak with you guys about why we are cooking our food, like why we humans decide to cook our food, and my experience with cooking versus eating raw foods, and how I managed to better my health overall when I switched from a cooked animal-based diet to a raw animal-based diet. First of all, I want you to think about the idea. We are actually the only species that cooks food. Even apes, like carnivores, lions, elephants, whatever you might think of, everyone is eating their food in the most natural, rawest form in nature. And I personally believe that that's exactly how we humans should be eating food, because it makes a lot of sense when you think about it. It's very logical, and if you actually believe and you have faith in nature overall, it also makes a lot of sense. And we often have faith in nature. We believe that sunlight heals. We believe that our nervous system gets better when we're visiting nature and we're outside. And hospitals back in the days had sunbeds for patients that were sick. So it's very obvious that we should trust in nature overall. And when it comes to raw food and us just being afraid of parasites, bacteria, and whatever comes with raw food, it's often a lack of faith. It's often a lack of faith in nature. It's really all it is. It's just us humans not really having faith and trust in nature, that everything is fine the way it is. For example, what happens when you put a piece of paper on fire? What happens when you put a tree on fire? What happens when you put anything on fire? It gets destroyed. It gets burnt, it gets dark, gray, and it gets into dust, okay? And why would that be any different from food? Why would we get more bioavailable nutrients when we put meat on fire? It doesn't even make sense when we start to think with our logical mind. And I want you to watch this video with an open mind. If you're closed-minded and you're watching this video, I don't want you on here because you're going to get irritated and angry at what I'm going to speak about in this video. So if you're not open-minded and you're not open to new ideas, you're not open to question the narrative, then please click away from this video. But if you're actually open-minded, you're open to new ideas, you're open to learn new stuff and new perspectives, no matter what your previous programming or belief was, I'm here to just open your mind and share my perspective with you. Let's look at a raw steak when it's raw. Red, colorful, juicy, very appealing to our eyes since it has a red deep color with yellow fat that signals to our brain that it's food. And then look at the other side of the spectrum when you've put it on fire for so long that it's black, gray, dark, dry, not appealing to our eyes. Let's compare the difference in bacteria, nutrients, enzymes. So in raw meat, you have bioavailable nutrients, alive enzymes, bacteria, water-soluble vitamins that are heat sensitive. So what happens when you put meat on fire? Of course, the water-soluble vitamins are going to waste because it's heat sensitive. Look at the burnt, black, and dry meat. You have no appeal at all, no nutrients left or minimal nutrients, no enzymes, no bacteria, and no water-soluble vitamins. So you have the black one, you have the red one. Which is more appealing to your eyes? Of course, it's going to be the red one, which has more nutrients, more bacteria, more enzymes. The red one. Which one do you want to eat if you listen to your intuition? The red one. We usually cook our steak to somewhere in the middle. So let's say most people eat a well-done steak or beef or mince. That's usually cooked through. No redness at all. What do you think happens the closer you get to the burnt steak? You get less minerals, less enzymes, less bacteria, and less nutrients overall. That's pretty logical, and if you're following and if you're listening right now, it should make sense to you. But what about the bacteria? What about the parasites? And this belief comes from the germ theory that we believe in today. It's what the medical industry are built on. The belief that we have external bacteria and parasites and invaders that will destroy our health from the outside in. So the idea is that if you get sick, something external invaded you, and the solution is to kill it. Meanwhile, the terrain theory looks at it from the opposite angle. It says that microbes are always present in our bodies, so we will always have parasites, bacteria in our bodies, but whether they cause symptoms or not depends on the internal environment of the body. So things like digestion, nervous system, toxicity, nutrient status, stress, and overall vitality determine how the body responds to these microbes. A strong, clean, and well-regulated terrain, bacteria stays balanced and do not cause problems. Meanwhile, in a weak, toxic, stressed terrain, the same bacteria that you have in your body can express different symptoms. So these bacteria, these parasites that you're very afraid of, is always present in your body. But the more toxicity that you have in your body, the more heavy metals you have in your body, the more you're gonna get sick, since the parasites and the bacteria are working on cleansing and detoxing your body from these things. Meanwhile, if you don't have a lot of toxicity in your body, if you don't have a lot of heavy metals, not exposed to a lot of pollution, and you're overall pretty healthy, then you're not going to trigger a detox. You're not going to activate these parasites and bacteria to clean up your internal environment. And that's why I don't believe that, cooking meat is important. It is not anything that should be necessary. And personally, I was very afraid of eating raw foods in the beginning because I had no knowledge of this before. But then I realized that I've been eating raw meat multiple times in my life without actually having any real symptoms. So, beef tartare, sushi, oysters, for example, these are all raw foods that get served in restaurants, but something that looks very weird when you do it at home because people judge you. So I went to buy some raw beef actually from a farmer, and I knew that, of course, if I'm gonna eat raw animal foods, I need the best quality possible because that makes a lot of sense. Why would I eat a sick animal? So whenever I started to introduce raw foods is actually when I started to cleanse my body even more. Even though I made 70% of my transformation in my health through cooked foods, the 30% left was me transitioning to a raw animal-based diet. In this transition to more raw foods, I cleared up my skin completely, and my gut health got a lot better. I got a lot leaner. Right now I'm actually gaining weight, so I'm putting on more fat because I'm increasing my fat intake, and I believe that it's healthy to be in a not very lean state, but in a 13-14% body fat, maybe even 15. In this transition where I introduce more raw foods like raw eggs, raw meat, raw milk, raw cheese, and so on, I actually felt a lot more energized and a lot lighter overall. So usually if I consumed a cooked animal-based meal, I could feel a lot heavier in my body. And especially if I ate cooked meat, I felt pretty heavy after a meal, and it felt pretty hard to digest as well. But now that I eat raw beef, it feels a lot lighter on my body and it digests super smoothly, especially raw eggs. Only digests in a couple of minutes, and then raw beef paired with raw fats also digests very smoothly. So that's something I noticed when I made this transition. Something else that I noticed in this transition is also cooking time. You know, when you don't cook, you have less preparation time. You can just pull up a steak, you can pull up some raw eggs, some raw butter, and just eat it as it is, or make it into a dish. But you don't really have to do your dishes. You don't have to really, you know, prepare or make a whole meal. You can just make it very simple. Diet and food planning isn't really anything time consuming anymore in my life. I eat my food and go on with my day. And then I can grab some raw milk with me if I go anywhere, so I stay satiated, and so I don't buy any processed foods or whatever. Third thing is I feel a lot more hydrated since I get the water-soluble vitamins from the meat and from raw milk and from raw eggs, for example. And I don't heat it since water-soluble vitamins are heat sensitive, as I said earlier. So way more hydrated. Now when I think of like cooked mince, for example, I get disgusted and I can never imagine eating that again because it feels so dehydrating. And whenever I would eat something like that, I would just like put a bunch of like tomato sauce in it and a bunch of spices and salt just to make it tasty. And now that I eat a raw steak, I can just eat it as it is. You know, I can train my jaw muscles with it because it's very tough. And I believe that we should eventually eat, you know, hard foods, tough foods that can develop our faces and our jaws and open up our face so we can breathe correctly and, you know, live a healthy, long-lasting life. I'd say the fourth positive change is that I've actually gotten a lot happier overall, and I don't really care about other people's opinions. You know, in the beginning when I was eating raw foods in public, I was pretty, you know, not nervous about it, but I was caring about other people's opinions, and I was wondering, oh, how should I explain this to people? But now that I eat it, it's like I just embrace it, and I can have some pretty interesting conversations with people over it. And I think it's quite nice to have impact on other people, to, you know, speak my perspective on it and get people on it as well to eat raw foods, so I can help others as well. You know, I can have a good impact on people that I don't know just by eating it in public and maybe speaking with them asking questions, and I can, you know, lead with good example and show them my transition, for example, and my transformation from when I looked very unhealthy to when I look, you know, pretty healthy right now. And that inspires a lot of people as well and sparks up interesting conversations in public. So I think that's also a pretty positive change in my opinion. Another argument that I wanted to bring up was parasites, bacteria, microbes overall is present in wild animals that are eating raw foods. So when you kill a deer, for example, a wild deer that's been living according to nature their whole life, you can see that microbes, parasites, bacteria are very present in their bodies. And then I wonder, like, if we lived according to nature fully, like lived according to nature without any man-made thing like fire, for example, it's something that we humans made, why wouldn't we have parasites and microbes in our bodies? I believe that microbes are only a thing that cleanses our body, and whenever our body is clean, they don't need to work, they get flushed out. It makes a lot of sense. If wild animals does have parasites and bacteria present in their bodies, I also believe that we should have it, and it makes a lot of sense. You know, nowadays we just go around, we're very afraid of bacteria, we do parasite cleanses because we feel like shit, even though, as I said, parasites are there for you to clean your body. That's why they appear in nature. We already know if we would live as naturally as possible in nature, we would be as happy and biochemically healthy as possible. Therefore, we would also have parasites and bacteria available in our bodies. So ask yourself then, if every single, you know, wild animal got these microbes present in their bodies, why wouldn't we have it present in our bodies? And why would that be something unnatural and harmful? Why do we think that nature made a mistake by, you know, giving us parasites and bacteria? This is just my thoughts. This is just something that I wanted to share with you guys, my perspective. I can make a longer video where I go over actual facts and actual studies that actually proves my theory and my beliefs. If you guys want that, comment down below. If you're someone that does not eat raw foods and you're still open-minded and you've watched this video, please give me your perspective, your ideas about this. But this is how I healed my body, and my clients healed their bodies as well, through living as natural as possible, and that is including eating raw animal-based foods. I'm not here to force my opinion on you. I'm just here to share my opinion and what I've been through with my health journey. All right, but that's it for this video. I wanted just to speak with you guys about this. I believe that the best thing you can do for your health is to live as naturally as possible, because nature always knows best. We should have faith in nature and believe that nature knows best all the time. Whenever you're sick, whenever you don't feel good, it's just you going against nature. So yeah, guys, this was another video. Let me know what you thought about it, and follow me on Instagram, where I post daily, and I also offer coaching one-on-one. If you're interested in that, just let me know. Shoot me a DM through Instagram.